You are not lacking discipline. You are surrendering it every time you accept a thought without examining it. Most of your suffering begins in the moments you stop governing your own mind and start reacting to what you did not choose. This series shows how a disciplined mind is built through simple Stoic habits that train focus, control attention, and remove dependence on impulse and external events. You will see how focus is not something you wait for, but something you practice through daily decisions that separate what is within your control from what is not. If you want more Stoic teaching like this, stay with this space and subscribe, not for entertainment, but for steady reminders that bring the mind back to reason when it starts to drift. What follows is not theory, it is direct guidance for a life that stops reacting and starts choosing. Number 1. Master your mind through discipline. Most people do not lack intelligence, they lack command. They know what is good, and still they drift. They know what must be done, and still they delay. They know their mind is being pulled in 10 directions, and still they surrender it to every impulse, every notification, every private fear, every passing mood. That is not weakness of circumstance, that is weakness of rule. A man without discipline is not ruled by reason. He is ruled by whatever touches him last. And if that is your life, then do not lie to yourself with soft words. You are not busy. You are not overwhelmed in some noble sense. You are divided. Your attention belongs to whatever is loud, and your character pays the price. The first work of a human being is not to control the world. It is to govern the mind that meets the world. You are not responsible for the weather of events, but you are responsible for the condition of your judgment. You are not responsible for every voice that comes at you, but you are responsible for the one you answer with inside yourself. This is where your life rises or collapses, not in the event, in the judgment, not in what happens, in how you receive it, not in the noise around you, in the order or disorder within you. Most suffering begins when the mind abandons its post. A man sees a difficulty and immediately calls it disaster. He feels discomfort and immediately calls it harm. He is ignored and immediately calls it rejection. He is delayed and immediately calls it failure. He is insulted and immediately calls it injury. But none of these things enter the soul unless the soul opens the door. The event is one thing. Your interpretation is another. That gap is where your freedom lives. That gap is also where your slavery begins if you refuse to guard it. If you want a disciplined life, begin here. Stop agreeing with every impression that appears in your mind. An impression is not truth simply because it arrived quickly. A desire is not command simply because it is strong. A fear is not prophecy simply because it feels urgent. The undisciplined mind is a courtroom without a judge. Every witness speaks, and the man believes them all. A disciplined mind pauses, it questions, it examines, it asks whether the thing before it is up to it or not up to it. It asks whether the feeling is useful or merely familiar. It asks whether the impulse leads toward virtue or toward weakness. This pause is not delay. This pause is power. You must learn to separate what depends on you from what does not. Your choices depend on you. Your effort depends on you. Your honesty depends on you. Your patience depends on you. Your restraint depends on you. Your restraint depends on you. Your response depends on you. The praise of others does not. Their approval does not. Their ignorance does not. Their cruelty does not. Their mood does not. Their fortune does not. Their failure does not. Their success does not. The moment you confuse these things, you hand your mind over to strangers. And what kind of life is that? To live as a servant to the reactions of people who do not know you, cannot complete you, and cannot govern your soul. Discipline begins with ownership, not ownership of events, ownership of your mind. Own your judgments, own your impulses, Own your refusals, own your attention, own your silence, own your yes and your no. A man who owns himself cannot be easily shaken. He may be burdened, but he is not broken. He may be tested, but he is not lost. He may be alone, but he is not abandoned. His mind is his kingdom, and reason is his ruler. You have likely spent too much time trying to feel ready. That is another form of surrender. Readiness is not a gift handed down from heaven. Readiness is built through repeated command over yourself. You do not wait until your mind is calm to be disciplined. You become disciplined so that your mind can become calm. You do not wait until temptation disappears to practice restraint. You practice restraint while temptation is still present. You do not wait until life becomes easy to become steady. You become steady while life remains hard. This is the training. This is the work. This is the path that turns a weak mind into a reliable one. In the morning, before the day has claimed you, sit in silence and decide what kind of person you will be. Not what you will get, not what you will avoid, not what others will think of you. Decide what virtues will govern your conduct. Will you be just? Will you be patient? Will you be brave? Will you be self-controlled? Will you be truthful? Those are not decorative words. They are the shape of a good life. If your aim is pleasure, then the world will always control you. If your aim is reputation, then the crowd will always control you. If your aim is comfort, then fear will always control you. But if your aim is virtue, then nothing outside your will can finally enslave you. Write this down each morning if you must, but do not treat it as a ritual without force. Ask yourself, what will threaten my discipline today? What will tempt me to waste my attention? Where am I most likely to become a slave to impulse? What situation will try to pull me away from reason? The point is not to predict the day perfectly. The point is to meet it with eyes open. A man who prepares himself is harder to defeat than a man who hopes for ease. Then choose one simple rule and obey it. Not 10 rules, 1 rule. For example, I will not touch my phone before I have done the first work I owe to myself. Or, I will not respond to anger with anger. Or, I will not complain about what I have not tried to improve. Or, I will not begin the day in confusion. I will begin with order. Discipline is not built by grand declarations. It is built by concrete acts repeated until the mind learns obedience. The soul learns through practice, not through fantasy. You say you cannot focus. Often what you mean is that you have not trained yourself to endure the discomfort of focus. Focus is not natural to a mind accustomed to escape. A weak mind wants variety because variety protects it from effort. It jumps from task to task, from thought to thought, from pleasure to pleasure, because staying with one worthy thing would expose its laziness. But a disciplined mind remains where reason has placed it. It does the thing in front of it without bargaining with itself. It accepts the limits of the moment and uses them. That is focus, not excitement, not intensity. Steady attention. Learn to work in single acts. When you eat, eat. When you speak, speak. When you read, read. When you work, work. When you rest, rest. A divided mind makes even simple things heavy because it is always elsewhere. It sits before one task and carries 3 others in its lap. Then it complains that life is exhausting. No, the burden is not the work. The burden is the failure to be present to the work. Give the mind one object at a time and it becomes stronger. Scatter it and it becomes soft, restless and suspicious of effort. There is a great lesson in the refusal of unnecessary noise. Not every sound deserves your ear. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every conversation deserves your participation. Not every concern deserves your energy. A disciplined mind guards its inner room. It does not let the outside world camp inside its thoughts. It admits only what is useful, true, and aligned with virtue. Everything else may pass by like wind through a corridor. You do not need to answer every call. You do not need to consume every distraction. You do not need to attend every argument. The man who cannot be quiet cannot be strong. The man who cannot be alone with himself cannot be free. Practice this today. Set a period of complete silence. No music, no scrolling, no pointless talking, no reaching outward to numb inward restlessness. Sit with your own mind. At first you will feel its resistance. It will demand stimulus. It will seek escape. Let it be uncomfortable. Do not obey the urge to flee. In that discomfort, you will see how undisciplined your attention has become. You will also see that the discomfort can be endured, and what can be endured can be governed. The mind grows stronger every time it is not given immediate relief from its own restlessness. You may think discipline is harsh. In truth, discipline is mercy. To leave the mind untended is cruelty. To let every appetite drive the soul is cruelty. To let every fear veto action is cruelty. To let every irritation decide your mood is cruelty. The strict hand of reason is not your enemy. It is your rescue. A good life requires boundaries. A good mind requires boundaries. A good character requires boundaries. Without them you are not free. You are merely ungoverned. When a desire rises, do not rush to feed it. Look at it, name it, ask what it wants and what it will cost. Most desires are not commands from nature. They are habits of weakness dressed as necessity. The urge to comfort yourself, to prove yourself, to be seen, to possess, to escape, to retaliate, to indulge, to delay, all of these rise with force, but force is not wisdom. The man who can stand between desire and action begins to recover himself. He learns that he is not every impulse. He is the one who can examine the impulse and choose. That is where dignity returns. If you want proof that the mind can be sharpened, deny it easy satisfactions. Refuse the small pleasures that own you. Not because pleasure is evil in itself, but because dependence on it is weakness. Practice going without what you have no right to require. Leave your appetite a little hungry sometimes. Let your body experience mild discomfort without complaint. Stand in the cold for a moment. Take a simple meal. Delay a wish. Walk without entertainment. Sit without reaching for a screen. These acts are not punishment. They are instruction. They teach the mind that comfort is not a ruler, and absence is not injury. The same mind that cannot tolerate small discomfort will not stand firm in greater trials. It will collapse under inconvenience and then call itself unlucky. No, it is untrained. Train it. Rehearse hardship in small doses while the stakes are low. This is how you prepare the inner fortress. A man who has practiced restraint in peace is less likely to betray himself in crisis. He knows he can endure. He knows he has already denied himself and survived. He knows the body may protest, but the rational self does not need to surrender. You must also become honest about the stories you tell yourself when you fail. You say, "I was too tired." Sometimes that is true. More often it is an excuse for lack of will. You say, "I needed a break." Sometimes that is true. More often it is surrender disguised as self-care. You say, "It was a bad day." Bad days are not rare, they are normal. The question is whether you remain governed on bad days. You say, "I can start tomorrow." Tomorrow is where discipline goes to die. The mind that postpones its duty learns to postpone everything. Begin now. Not because now is easy, but because now is the only time you possess. Evening is the time for truth. Before sleep, review your day without vanity and without self-hatred. Ask yourself where you were strong. Ask yourself where you were weak. Ask yourself where you acted from reason and where you surrendered to impulse. Did you speak as a just person would speak? Did you waste time that belonged to a higher purpose? Did you let one irritation distort your whole afternoon? Did you make an excuse where you should have made an effort? Did you choose what was right or what was merely comfortable? This examination is not meant to humiliate you. It is meant to sharpen you. A man who cannot look at himself clearly will remain a stranger to himself, and a stranger cannot govern a house he does not know. Be severe only in judgment, not in despair. If you fail, do not collapse into self-pity. Self-pity is laziness with tears. It allows you to feel deep while remaining unchanged. Better to be plain with yourself. I fell short, I know where, I know why, I will correct it. That is enough. The point of discipline is not to become flawless in a day. The point is to become less ruled by weakness and more obedient to reason. Progress is real when you fail less often, recover faster, and excuse yourself less. Do not seek a perfect mind. Seek a disciplined one. A perfect mind is not given to mortal beings. A disciplined mind is built by effort. It is built when you refuse to obey every impulse. It is built when you return to the task after distraction. It is built when you speak less and mean more. It is built when you resist the seduction of being constantly stimulated. It is built when you do what is right without asking whether it is pleasant. It is built when your inner life becomes more ordered than your external life. Remember this. Your mind becomes what it repeatedly attends to. Attend to vanity, and you become vain. Attend to grievance, and you become bitter. Attend to fear, and you become timid. Attend to pleasure, 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 and you become timid. Attend to truth, and you become clear. Attend to virtue, and you become free. This is not mysticism. It is formation. What you feed grows. What you neglect weakens. What you repeat becomes character. Therefore, guard your impressions. When an angry thought arrives, do not say, "This is true." Say, "This is an impression." When a shameful urge arrives, do not say, "I must obey." Say, "This is a temptation." When a discouraging thought arrives, do not say, "This is my fate." Say, "This is a judgment, and judgments can be tested." You do not need to identify with everything that passes through your mind. In fact, you must not. To identify with every thought is to live as a captive of your own turbulence. Stand apart from the movement long enough to see it. Then choose. A great part of discipline is refusing to dramatize your own life. The weak mind turns every inconvenience into a tragedy and every criticism into an attack on its identity. It whispers to itself, "This should not be happening to me." But it is happening. The universe does not ask your preference before it tests you. The proper question is not why this is happening, but how you will answer. Will you answer with bitterness or with reason, with panic or with steadiness, with complaint or with action? You have power over this, not over the event, over your answer to it. That is enough to make a human being noble. You do not need a life without friction. You need a mind that becomes more capable because of friction. The stone becomes smooth by contact. The soul becomes strong by resistance. Each interruption is an opportunity to practice return. Each temptation is an opportunity to practice refusal. Each insult is an opportunity to practice dignity. Each delay is an opportunity to practice patience. Each burden is an opportunity to practice endurance. The world keeps offering you exercises. Your task is to stop calling them curses when they are training. At work, discipline means doing the task before indulging the mood. You will not always feel motivated. That is irrelevant. The good man does not wait for feelings to authorize duty. He acts because duty is enough. He begins the work he has chosen, and in the doing, the mind becomes clearer. At home, discipline means listening without preparing your defense. It means speaking with restraint when anger would prefer speed. It means refusing to make your family pay for your private frustrations. In solitude, discipline means not letting your mind rot in idle rumination. It means using silence for reflection, not for self-torture. In temptation, discipline means pausing before the first step, because the first step is often the one that matters most. In grief, discipline means allowing nature to do what nature does, while refusing to let sorrow become self-abandonment. There is also discipline in what you choose not to do. Do not always explain yourself. Do not always defend yourself. Do not always chase closure from people who cannot give it honestly. Do not always seek the last word. The mind becomes untidy when it is addicted to reaction. Silence is often more disciplined than speech. Absence of reaction is sometimes more powerful than argument. A man who knows himself does not need to answer every provocation. He knows that not every battle is worthy of his soul. Still, discipline does not mean hardness without humanity. It means you do not allow emotion to overrule reason. You may feel anger, but you need not become anger. You may feel fear, but you need not become fear. You may feel pleasure, but you need not become appetite. You may feel grief, but you need not become despair. The emotion arrives, the judgment decides. This is the dignity of the rational self. It is not the absence of feeling, it is authority over feeling. If you have lived too long without command, expect resistance when you begin. Your habits will protest, your body will protest, your excuses will protest. Even your social environment may protest, because people often prefer the version of you that is easy to predict and easy to influence. But you are not here to preserve ease, you are here to become just, steady and strong. Let the protest come. It is the sound of old weakness losing power. Begin small, but begin with seriousness. Rise at a set time. Make your bed or order your space, not because the object itself is sacred, but because disorder in the surroundings often reflects disorder in the soul. Read for a period without interruption. Work in focused blocks. Put away what distracts you before it distracts you. End each day with review. In moments of frustration, breathe once before you speak. In moments of desire, pause before you act. In moments of fatigue, ask whether you are truly exhausted or merely unwilling. In moments of success, remember that praise is not a verdict on your soul. In moments of failure, remember that one failure does not make you corrupt, it makes you human. The question is what you do next. The disciplined mind is not one that never wanders, it is one that returns. That is the real measure. You will drift. Everyone drifts. The difference is whether you remain in drift or come back. Each return strengthens the mind. Each return teaches it that it need not obey every impulse. Each return confirms that you are not lost unless you stop seeking the right path. This is why self-command is built over time. It is not a single victory. It is 1,000 small returns. So today, do not ask for a new personality. Ask for a stronger practice. Do not ask to be rescued from effort. Ask to become worthy of effort. Do not ask for a lighter life. Ask for a steadier soul. Do not ask the world to become easier. Ask yourself to become harder to move from reason. That is the proper prayer of a Stoic heart. Not comfort, not applause, not escape. A mind that stands upright under pressure and does not betray itself. And if you are honest, you already know where your mind is weakest. You know the hour when you become careless. You know the trigger that makes you scroll, snack, avoid, lash out, or sink into useless thought. You know the story you tell yourself to justify it. Stop pretending not to know. Knowledge without action is merely a polished excuse. The moment you see the pattern, interrupt it. Do not negotiate with it. Do not sentimentalize it. Cut it off. Replace it with a better act. Read one page. Write one sentence. Take one walk. Finish one task. Make one honest choice. That is how a new order begins. Do not be ashamed of how much work you need. Be ashamed only of refusing the work. A soul that sees its disorder and chooses correction is already rising. A soul that hides from its disorder remains in chains. You are allowed to be unfinished. You are not allowed to be indifferent. You are allowed to struggle. You are not allowed to surrender to what you know is beneath you. The disciplined life is not built by those who never falter. It is built by those who refuse to remain where they fell. So face yourself. Not tomorrow, not after the next distraction. Now. Look at the state of your mind without embellishment. See what controls you. See what weakens you. See what you keep calling just a habit when it is really a chain. Then choose to become the one who holds the chain, not the one dragged by it. That choice will not make you famous. It may not make you comfortable. It may not make you admired, but it will make you free in the only sense that matters. A free person is not one who gets everything he wants. A free person is one who does not belong to what he wants. He can desire without being consumed. He can lose without collapsing. He can work without complaining. He can endure without bitterness. He can be alone without panic. He can be among people without losing himself. He can meet the whole day with a mind that answers to reason first. That is the life worth having. That is the mind worth building. That is the discipline Seneca's spirit calls for in you now, not as a theory, but as a demand. Start today. Guard your mind today. Refuse the first lie today. End one excuse today. Complete one duty today. Sit in silence today. Review your conduct tonight. Then do it again tomorrow. This is not a dramatic path, but it is a real one. And a real life is built one act of self-government at a time. The world will continue to offer you distraction. The body will continue to seek ease. The crowd will continue to praise what is empty. Your task is unchanged. Govern the mind, discipline the will, choose virtue, accept what is not yours to control, train attention, correct yourself without mercy toward weakness and without hatred toward yourself. Remain at your post, remain with reason, remain faithful to the only good that cannot be taken from you. When you do this, your life will not merely look different, it will be different from the inside out. Number 2. Control distractions with Stoic focus. The greatest distraction in your life is not the noise outside of you. It is the uncontrolled movement inside your own mind. A person can sit in a silent room and still be completely lost because his thoughts have become a place without order. He is pulled by memories he cannot change, fears that have not arrived, opinions he cannot control, and desires that constantly demand attention. The body may be still, but the mind is running in every direction. This is the condition of a person who has surrendered his attention. Your attention is one of the most valuable things you possess, because it determines the quality of your judgments, and your judgments determine the quality of your life. What you repeatedly allow into your mind shapes the person you become. If you give your attention to resentment, you strengthen resentment. If you give your attention to comparison, you strengthen dissatisfaction. If you give your attention to meaningless stimulation, you weaken your ability to remain with what matters. The mind becomes trained by what it accepts. The mistake most people make is believing that their thoughts are simply happening to them and that they have no responsibility for what enters their inner world. But the disciplined person understands something different. A thought may appear without permission, but accepting it is a choice. An impression may arrive, but agreeing with it is an act of judgment. The mind is constantly presenting possibilities, interpretations, and reactions. Your responsibility is not to prevent every thought from appearing. Your responsibility is to examine which thoughts deserve your agreement. When something happens, there is a moment before your reaction. In that moment, your freedom exists. Most people ignore this space. They immediately follow the first emotion, the first assumption, the first impulse. Someone speaks harshly, and anger rises. They accept the anger as justified. Someone succeeds and envy appears. They accept the comparison as truth. Something goes wrong and frustration appears. They accept the belief that life is unfair. But the wise person does not become a servant to the first movement of the mind. He pauses and asks, what exactly has happened, and what am I adding to it? This question is a discipline of the mind. The event itself is often simple. The suffering usually comes from the story attached to it. A delay becomes an insult. A mistake becomes a personal failure. A disagreement becomes a threat. A change becomes a reason for fear. The mind creates additional burdens and then complains about carrying them. The Stoic practice is to remove what is unnecessary. See the thing as it is before you decide what it means. Your mind does not need more information. It needs more judgment. The modern world offers endless things to consume, endless opinions to consider, endless voices demanding a response. But the disciplined person asks a different question. Does this improve my character? Does this help me act with wisdom? Does this strengthen my ability to live according to reason? If the answer is no, then giving it your attention is not harmless. It is a choice to spend your limited inner resources on something that does not serve your purpose. Many people say they want focus, but they continue feeding everything that destroys focus. They begin the morning by allowing external voices to decide their first thoughts. They fill every empty moment with distraction. They avoid silence because silence reveals the condition of the mind. They seek constant entertainment because facing themselves requires honesty. But the person who cannot sit with his own thoughts cannot truly know himself. And without self-knowledge, there can be no improvement. Begin your day before the world begins making demands of you. Do not immediately hand your mind to external events. Before messages, before opinions, before the concerns of others enter, create a moment of deliberate reflection. Ask yourself what is within your control today. Ask yourself what kind of person you intend to be. Ask yourself what weakness is most likely to appear and how you will respond when it does. This is not preparation for controlling the day. It is preparation for controlling yourself within the day. A disciplined morning does not require a perfect environment. It requires a clear intention. The purpose is to remind yourself that your mind belongs to you before it belongs to anything else. You are not beginning the day as a victim waiting to see what happens. You are beginning as a rational being responsible for your choices. You must also learn the difference between attention and attachment. Attention means you observe something clearly. Attachment means you allow something outside your control to dominate your inner state. You can care about your work without allowing the outcome to define your worth. You can love people without believing you can control their choices. You can pursue goals without becoming destroyed by circumstances that do not obey you. The problem is not caring. The problem is demanding that reality follow your personal expectations. Every distraction has a hidden question behind it. It asks, will you abandon what matters for what is immediate? The temptation is rarely presented as a great weakness. It usually appears as something small, a few minutes wasted, a quick reaction, a minor complaint, a simple excuse. But character is built through small choices. A person becomes undisciplined through repeated surrender, and a person becomes strong through repeated acts of self-command. Do not underestimate the power of a single decision made correctly. Choosing not to react immediately trains patience. Choosing to finish what you started trains commitment. Choosing to remain silent instead of speaking from anger trains restraint. Choosing to return to the task after distraction trains attention. The mind learns from every action. Each choice is a vote for the person you are becoming. A powerful Stoic exercise is to examine your judgments throughout the day, not only at night, in the moment. When frustration appears, question it. When desire appears, question it. When fear appears, question it. Ask yourself, is this something I control? Is this judgment helping me act well? Is this reaction coming from reason or from impulse? This simple examination prevents the mind from becoming automatic. The undisciplined mind lives on automatic response. It does not choose, it reacts. It does not examine, it assumes. It does not accept reality, it argues with reality. This creates constant inner conflict because the person is always fighting what already exists. But peace comes from alignment with what is true. You cannot control every event, but you can stop wasting your energy demanding that events be different before you choose to be virtuous. A person who controls distractions understands that not every thought deserves a conversation. Some thoughts are simply noise. They appear because the mind has developed patterns, not because they contain wisdom. If you treat every thought as important, you will spend your life responding to mental activity instead of living according to principle. Learn to let unnecessary thoughts pass without giving them authority. This does not mean ignoring reality. It means seeing reality clearly. The Stoic does not hide from problems. He removes exaggeration so he can meet problems with a steady mind. A clear mind is more capable of action than a disturbed mind. When you stop adding unnecessary fear, anger, and complaint, you have more strength available for what actually needs to be done. The evening is another opportunity for discipline. Before sleep, review where your attention went. What controlled your mind today? Did you spend your energy on things within your power, or did you waste it fighting what cannot be changed? Did you allow another person's words to determine your peace? Did you abandon your priorities for temporary comfort? Did you act according to reason, or did you follow impulse? This examination should be honest but not destructive. The purpose is correction. A person who refuses to examine himself repeats the same mistakes and calls them circumstances. A person who examines himself finds the place where change begins. The mind becomes sharper when it is willing to see itself without excuses. You cannot remove every distraction from the world. There will always be noise. There will always be demands. There will always be uncertainty. The goal is not to create a perfect external environment. The goal is to build an internal discipline strong enough that the external world does not constantly steal your direction. Your focus is protected by what you refuse. Refuse unnecessary arguments. Refuse constant comparison. Refuse the need to know everything happening around you. Refuse the habit of escaping every uncomfortable feeling. Refuse the belief that you need permission from circumstances before you can act with virtue. The disciplined mind does not ask, "How can I make everything easier?" It asks, "How can I meet everything with greater wisdom?" This change in question changes everything. The first question looks outward for rescue. The second question looks inward for strength. Your life is being shaped every day by where your attention goes. Every hour you give to distraction is an hour you cannot use for growth. Every moment you spend trapped in unnecessary thought is a moment removed from deliberate action. Time is not lost only when you do nothing. Time is also lost when you give your mind to things that do not deserve it. The path forward is simple, but it requires seriousness. Guard your attention. Examine your judgments. Separate what belongs to you from what does not. Return to reason when emotions rise. Choose your actions instead of being controlled by impulses. Do not wait for a perfect moment to become disciplined. Discipline is created in the imperfect moments where you choose correctly. The world will continue to compete for your attention. Your mind will continue to produce thoughts. Challenges will continue to appear. Your responsibility remains the same. Remain the governor of your own inner life. A focused person is not someone who never becomes distracted. A focused person is someone who notices the distraction and returns without surrender. Each return strengthens the mind. Each return rebuilds self-command. Each return reminds you that you are capable of choosing rather than merely reacting. Do not allow your attention to become something anyone can take. It is your responsibility. It is your training ground. It is where your character is formed. Guard it carefully. Use it wisely. Give it only to what makes you more rational, more disciplined, and more capable of living according to virtue. Because when you control your attention, you begin to control your life. Number 3. Build daily habits like Seneca. A person's life is not transformed by a single decision. It is transformed by the repeated decisions that seem too small to matter. The way you begin your morning, the way you respond to inconvenience, the way you speak when irritated, the way you handle your responsibilities when no one is watching, these are the moments that quietly shape your character. People often wait for a dramatic change, a powerful moment, or a perfect opportunity. But the disciplined person understands that character is not created in rare moments. It is revealed and strengthened through ordinary ones. Look honestly at your days. What do your habits reveal about you? Not what you say you value, not what you hope to become. Your habits reveal what you actually serve. If your first action each morning is to surrender your mind to distraction, you are training dependence. If your first response to difficulty is complaint, you are training weakness. If you constantly delay what you know must be done, you are teaching yourself that your own decisions have no authority. Every repeated action is a lesson you are giving to yourself. A habit is not merely something you do. A habit is a judgment repeated until it becomes part of your character. You choose an action because of what you believe. If you believe comfort is more important than duty, your actions will reveal it. If you believe approval from others is more important than integrity, your choices will reveal it. If you believe temporary pleasure is more important than inner strength, your days will reveal it. The Stoic path begins when you stop examining the world and begin examining the principles guiding your own behavior. Many people are controlled by habits they never consciously chose. They wake up already carrying yesterday's emotions. They repeat the same reactions. They enter the same conflicts. They make the same excuses. Then they wonder why their life remains unchanged. But nothing changes when the mind keeps repeating the same pattern while expecting a different result. Transformation begins when you bring reason into the places where you have been acting automatically. The first discipline of the day is to reclaim ownership of your mind. Before the demands of the world arrive, create a moment where you remember what is truly important. Do not begin with the question, "What do I need to achieve?" Begin with the question, "How should I conduct myself?" The outcome of the day is not fully yours to command, but your character during the day is yours to shape. Prepare yourself for what may come. There may be delays, there may be criticism, there may be people who misunderstand you, there may be situations that test your patience. Do not enter the day expecting everything to cooperate with your preferences. Enter knowing that your responsibility is to meet each circumstance with wisdom. A person who expects life to be easy becomes frustrated by reality. A person who expects reality to test him becomes prepared. This does not mean becoming negative or suspicious. It means removing the childish belief that difficulty is an interruption of life. Difficulty is part of life. The question is whether it will make you bitter or better. The event itself does not decide your character. Your response does. Daily habits must be connected to virtue. A routine without purpose is only repetition. The Stoic does not build habits to become impressive. He builds habits to become good. The goal is not to appear disciplined. The goal is to become a person who naturally acts with discipline because his judgments have been trained. Create habits that strengthen reason. Spend time each morning in reflection, not to imagine a perfect future, but to prepare your mind for the present. Ask yourself what situations may challenge your patience. Ask yourself where you may be tempted to act from anger, fear, pride, or laziness. The purpose is not to control every event before it happens. The purpose is to prevent yourself from being controlled by your first reaction when events arrive. Create habits that strengthen attention. When you perform a task, give it your full presence. When you speak with someone, listen instead of preparing your response. When you work without constantly seeking escape. A scattered mind creates a scattered life. A focused mind allows you to act according to intention rather than impulse. Create habits that strengthen self-control. You do not build inner strength by always obeying what you feel. Feelings are part of human experience, but they are not rulers. If every emotion becomes a command, you are not free. Freedom requires the ability to choose your action even when your feelings pull in another direction. The person who has trained himself to wake when he does not want to wake, work when he does not feel inspired, remain calm when he wants to react, and continue when he wants to quit, has developed something more valuable than motivation. He has developed command over himself. You must also understand that habits are built through consistency, not intensity. Many people become excited for change and attempt to rebuild their entire life in one day. Then when discomfort appears, they abandon the effort. This happens because they were attached to the feeling of transformation rather than the practice of transformation. The disciplined person is not interested in temporary enthusiasm. He is interested in steady improvement. A small act performed with reason is more valuable than a large act performed from emotion. One honest examination of yourself can change more than 100 empty promises. One moment of restraint can strengthen your character more than hours of pretending to be disciplined. The inner life is built quietly. There is also a habit that many people avoid because it requires courage. Admitting when you are wrong. The undisciplined mind protects its image. It creates excuses. It blames circumstances. It searches for someone else to carry responsibility. But a person who seeks wisdom must first seek honesty. You cannot correct what you refuse to see. When you fail, do not ask, "Why am I like this?" That question often leads to hopelessness. Ask instead, "What judgment led me here, and what judgment must replace it?" This keeps the mind focused on improvement rather than self-punishment. The purpose of examining yourself is not to create shame. It is to create clarity. Every evening, review your actions, not as a judge seeking punishment, but as a student seeking understanding. Where did you act according to reason? Where did you surrender to impulse? Where did you complain about something outside your control? Where did you allow another person's behavior to disturb your character? Where did you choose the easier path instead of the better one? A person who reviews himself daily does not remain blind to his own patterns. He catches small weaknesses before they become a way of life. He sees where his attention is wasted. He sees where his desires are controlling him. He sees where his character needs strengthening. Do not underestimate the power of repetition. The mind becomes familiar with whatever you repeatedly practice. If you repeatedly choose patience, patience becomes easier. If you repeatedly choose restraint, restraint becomes stronger. If you repeatedly choose honesty, honesty becomes natural. But the opposite is also true. Repeated excuses create a mind that searches for excuses. Repeated complaints create a mind that searches for problems. Repeated avoidance creates a mind that fears action. Your habits are either building a person you respect or reinforcing a person you are trying to escape. There is no neutral practice. Every day you are training something. The question is what you are training. The Stoic approach to daily life is simple. Make every action an opportunity to practice virtue. Eating can be a practice of moderation. Speaking can be a practice of wisdom. Working can be a practice of responsibility. Waiting can be a practice of patience. Difficulty can be a practice of endurance. You do not need special circumstances to develop character. Every circumstance gives you material. Do not look for the perfect environment where discipline becomes easy. That environment does not exist. The person who depends on perfect conditions will always have a reason to delay. The person who trains himself in imperfect conditions becomes ready for any conditions. Your life is not changed by what you intend to do. It is changed by what you repeatedly do. Intentions matter because they direct action, but action is where character is formed. A person who constantly says he values discipline but repeatedly chooses comfort is teaching himself a different lesson. Begin with what is directly in front of you. Clean one thing, complete one responsibility, control one reaction, replace one harmful pattern, return to one meaningful practice. Do not wait for a different life before practicing virtue. Virtue is how you create a different life. The strongest person is not the one who has removed all difficulty from his path. It is the person who has developed habits strong enough that difficulty does not remove him from his principles. He does not need constant external motivation because his actions come from a trained character. The world will always offer distractions, temptations, and reasons to abandon discipline. Your answer is not anger toward the world. Your answer is preparation of the self. Build the habits that make you harder to move away from reason. Build the routines that remind you who you choose to be. Build the daily practices that return you to what is within your power. A disciplined life is not created in one moment of inspiration. It is created each time you choose the higher action over the easier one. Each time you pause before reacting. Each time you examine your judgment. Each time you accept what you cannot change and act where you can. Each time you return to your principles after failure. Do not wait to become a different person before you act differently. Act differently, and through those actions, become different. The mind follows practice. The character follows repeated choices. Your habits are shaping your future self today. Make them worthy of the person you intend to become, not for praise, not for recognition, not because others are watching. Do it because the condition of your own soul is the one responsibility you will carry every day. Build your habits with reason. Strengthen them with patience. Examine them with honesty. Let every day become training for a more disciplined mind and a more virtuous life. Number 4. Strengthen willpower through Stoicism principles. Willpower is not proven when life is easy. Anyone can appear disciplined when there is no resistance, no temptation, and no pressure. The true condition of your character is revealed when something inside you demands the easier path, and you must decide whether you will obey that demand or govern it. This is where the difference between a person ruled by impulse and a person ruled by reason becomes clear. Many people misunderstand willpower. They think it is a feeling of strength that appears when they need it. They wait to feel motivated before acting. They wait to feel confident before beginning. They wait to feel ready before changing. But the disciplined mind understands that strength does not come before action. Strength is created through action. Each time you choose according to reason instead of impulse, you reinforce your ability to choose again. Your greatest obstacle is not the world around you. It is the part of yourself that seeks comfort without responsibility. It is the voice that says one more delay will not matter. One more excuse will not matter. One more surrender will not matter. But every surrender teaches the mind a lesson. Every time you allow weakness to decide, weakness becomes easier to follow. Every time you choose discipline, discipline becomes easier to practice. Willpower begins with understanding what is truly valuable. If you believe that comfort, approval, pleasure, or success are the highest goods, then your willpower will always be fragile because those things are not fully within your control. They can be taken away, they can change, they can disappear. But when your highest goal becomes living with wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control, your foundation becomes stronger because these depend on your own choices. A person with strong willpower does not need the world to cooperate before acting well. He understands that circumstances are outside his command, but his conduct remains his responsibility. He can lose something valuable and still maintain dignity. He can face rejection and still remain fair. He can experience difficulty and still choose patience. His strength comes from knowing where his power actually exists. The first practice of strengthening willpower is learning to separate desire from necessity. The mind often presents wants as if they are requirements. It says, "I need this comfort, I need this approval, I need this outcome." But examine these statements carefully. Do you truly need them, or have you simply become attached to them? The person who cannot distinguish between preference and necessity becomes controlled by every desire that appears. Practice questioning your impulses before obeying them. When you want to avoid a difficult task, ask what you are protecting yourself from. When you want to react in anger, ask what judgment created that anger. When you want to seek validation, ask why another person's opinion has been given authority over your peace. The purpose of this examination is not to eliminate human experience, it is to prevent unconscious reactions from ruling your life. The mind becomes stronger when it learns that discomfort is not an emergency. A moment of frustration does not require immediate escape. A difficult emotion does not require immediate action. A challenge does not require immediate complaint. The undisciplined person treats every uncomfortable feeling as a command. The disciplined person treats it as information and chooses his response carefully. Begin your morning by training your will before the day tests it. Decide what principles will guide you. Do not make your goal to avoid difficulty. Make your goal to meet difficulty correctly. Remind yourself that there will be moments when patience is required, moments when restraint is required, and moments when you must act without waiting for your feelings to agree. A person who prepares his mind is not surprised by resistance. He expects it. He knows that every meaningful action will encounter some form of difficulty because the mind naturally prefers what is familiar and easy. Growth requires moving beyond what the untrained self prefers. This is why small acts of discipline matter. The person who practices keeping simple commitments develops trust in himself. If you say you will do something and you repeatedly fail to do it, your own mind learns that your decisions have no force. But when you make a commitment and honor it, even a small one, you strengthen the relationship between intention and action. Do not make promises to impress yourself. Make promises you can keep, and then keep them with seriousness. Wake when you decide to wake. Complete the task you decide to complete. Speak with the restraint you decided to practice. These small victories are not insignificant. They are the foundation of self-command. Another essential practice is accepting that your emotions are not enemies, but they are not rulers. Anger can appear without permission. Fear can appear without permission. Desire can appear without permission, but your response remains connected to your judgment. You are not required to become whatever feeling enters your mind. You can observe it without surrendering to it. A person without self-control says, "I was angry, so I acted that way." A person developing wisdom says, "Anger appeared and I chose how to respond." The first person gives responsibility away. The second person takes it back. Your willpower is weakened every time you blame something outside yourself for your own reactions. If someone insults you and you become consumed by rage, you have allowed another person's words to govern your inner state. If someone disappoints you and you abandon your values, you have allowed their behavior to decide your character. The actions of others may affect your circumstances, but they do not have the authority to determine who you become. This is why the practice of focusing on what belongs to you is essential. Your effort belongs to you. Your preparation belongs to you. Your honesty belongs to you. Your response belongs to you. The outcome may not. Do your part completely, then accept what follows without allowing your peace to depend on something you never controlled. Many people destroy their willpower by constantly negotiating with themselves. They know what must be done, but they create endless discussions with their own excuses. They ask, "Do I really need to do this now? Maybe tomorrow would be better. Maybe I deserve to avoid this." This constant negotiation weakens the mind because it teaches that every responsibility can be questioned. A disciplined person does not debate every duty. He recognizes what is right and moves toward it. This does not mean acting without thought. It means thinking clearly before action and then refusing to betray that decision through unnecessary hesitation. You must also practice voluntary restraint. Not because ordinary pleasures are automatically wrong, but because dependence is dangerous. If you cannot say no to yourself, then something outside your reason is controlling you. Occasionally choose simplicity. Remove unnecessary comforts. Spend time without constant entertainment. Allow yourself to experience a small amount of difficulty without immediately trying to remove it. This teaches the mind an important truth. You are capable of more than your impulses claim. The urge says you cannot tolerate discomfort. Experience proves otherwise. The desire says you cannot wait. Experience proves otherwise. The fear says you cannot face difficulty. Experience proves otherwise. Willpower grows through evidence. You show yourself that you can govern yourself. You create a history of discipline. You become a person who trusts his own judgment because he has practiced following it. At the end of each day, examine where your will was strong and where it was weak. Do not hide from the moments where you failed. A person who refuses to see his weaknesses cannot strengthen them. Ask yourself where you acted from reason and where you acted from impulse. Ask yourself what situations exposed your lack of preparation. Ask yourself what choice tomorrow requires from you. The purpose of reflection is improvement. The past cannot be changed, but your understanding of it can shape the future. Every mistake becomes useful when it teaches you how to act better. Do not seek a life where you never struggle with yourself. That is not the human condition. Seek a life where your rational self becomes stronger than your uncontrolled impulses. The goal is not to remove every desire. The goal is to ensure that desire answers to wisdom. A strong will is not a hard personality. It is a steady relationship with your own principles. It means you do not abandon what you know is right because the moment feels difficult. It means you do not trade long-term character for short-term relief. It means you remain aligned with reason even when no one rewards you for doing so. Your life is shaped by the moments where no one is watching. The private decisions reveal the true condition of your mind. Every time you choose discipline over impulse, you build yourself. Every time you choose honesty over excuse, you strengthen yourself. Every time you choose responsibility over blame, you move closer to freedom. Do not wait for a stronger version of yourself to appear before you begin. The stronger version is created through the choices you make now. The mind becomes disciplined by being disciplined. The will becomes strong by being exercised. Today you will face choices. Some will be obvious. Some will be hidden inside small reactions and quiet decisions. In each one, you have the opportunity to practice self-command. You cannot control everything that happens around you, but you can control whether you meet it with a trained mind or an uncontrolled one. Strengthen your will through daily practice. Examine your judgments, question your impulses, keep your commitments, accept what is beyond your control. Return to reason whenever emotion attempts to lead. The person who learns to govern himself possesses something greater than external success. He possesses the ability to remain himself in any circumstance. That is the true power of Stoic discipline. Number 5. Practice self-control before external control. The desire to control everything outside yourself is one of the greatest causes of inner disorder. You try to control people's opinions, their actions, their choices, their words, and their reactions toward you. You try to control outcomes before they happen. You try to force circumstances to match your expectations. Then, when reality refuses to obey, frustration appears. But the problem is not always what happened. The problem is the demand that what happened should have been different. A person who cannot control himself will always attempt to control what is outside himself. He looks outward because he refuses to examine inward. He wants others to change before he changes his own response. He wants the world to become calmer before he becomes calmer. He wants life to become easier before he develops endurance. But this is the opposite of wisdom. The first responsibility of a human being is not to arrange the world according to his wishes. It is to govern the mind that faces the world. Self-control is the foundation of freedom because without it, every external thing can become your master. If another person's words can destroy your peace, they control you. If a delay can ruin your character, circumstances control you. If a desire can force you to abandon your principles, your impulses control you. The person who has not learned to rule himself is surrounded by rulers he did not choose. The beginning of self-control is recognizing the difference between what belongs to you and what does not. Your judgment belongs to you. Your actions belong to you. Your effort belongs to you. Your intentions belong to you. But the reactions of others do not. The results of every effort do not. The future does not. The past does not. When you spend your energy trying to possess what was never yours, you weaken the part of life that actually belongs to you. Look at the moments when you lose your peace. Often it is not because something outside has absolute power over you. It is because your mind has created a demand. You say, "This person must understand me. This situation must go my way. This outcome must happen." But these are not facts. They are expectations, and when expectations become demands, disappointment becomes inevitable. A disciplined mind does not remove preferences. It removes dependence. You may prefer respect, but you do not need another person to provide it before you act with dignity. You may prefer success, but you do not need success to prove your worth. You may prefer comfort, but you do not need comfort to remain steady. The person who understands this cannot be easily controlled because his peace is not placed in the hands of changing circumstances. Many people spend their lives trying to win battles that do not belong to them. They argue with reality. They replay conversations. They imagine different outcomes. They carry anger toward things that cannot be undone. They allow yesterday to continue controlling today. But the disciplined mind asks a different question. What is required of me now? This question returns power to where it belongs. The past cannot be corrected, but your present response can be chosen. Another person may have acted poorly, but you still choose whether you will respond with wisdom or with the same weakness you criticize. A situation may be unfair, but you still choose whether you will abandon your principles because of it. Self-control is not pretending that nothing affects you. It is refusing to let everything define you. You will feel anger. You will experience disappointment. You will face uncertainty. The Stoic path does not require you to become emotionless. It requires you to become responsible for what you do with your emotions. When anger rises, do not immediately speak. Give reason time to return. The first reaction is often the reaction of habit, not wisdom. The person who always reacts quickly eventually becomes predictable because his impulses control him. But the person who creates space between feeling and action begins to regain authority over himself. Practice this pause throughout your day. Before sending the message you want to send in frustration, pause. Before judging someone, pause. Before complaining about a situation, pause. Ask yourself whether your response reflects the person you want to be. Ask whether your words will improve the situation or merely release your emotion. Ask whether you are acting from strength or from a wounded desire to defend yourself. Your morning discipline should begin with this intention: today I will govern my own mind before attempting to govern anything else. Do not wake up looking for what the world owes you. Wake up considering what you owe to your own character. Your duty is not to receive a perfect day. Your duty is to meet the day with reason. Prepare yourself for human behavior. People will misunderstand. People will disappoint. People will act from their own judgments, fears, and weaknesses. If you expect every person to act according to your standards, you will constantly create unnecessary suffering. This does not mean approving every action. It means seeing clearly that another person's choices belong to them, while your response belongs to you. The person who practices self-control becomes less interested in proving himself. He does not need every argument to end with his victory. He does not need every criticism to be answered. He does not need every opinion corrected. He understands that his character is not strengthened by winning every external conflict. It is strengthened by remaining aligned with reason. There is great weakness in needing the outside world to confirm your inner stability. If your confidence depends on praise, you become afraid of criticism. If your peace depends on agreement, you become afraid of disagreement. If your happiness depends on possession, you become afraid of loss. The more conditions you attach to your peace, the more ways you create for yourself to be disturbed. The disciplined person builds his foundation within. He does not ignore the world. He participates in it fully. He works, loves, communicates, and pursues goals. But he does not surrender his entire inner state to things that can change at any moment. A powerful practice is to examine your complaints. Complaints reveal where you believe reality owes you something. When you complain about a person, ask what expectation was violated. When you complain about a circumstance, ask whether action is possible or whether acceptance is required. When you complain about yourself, ask whether you are correcting your behavior or simply attacking your identity. A complaint without action is usually a refusal to accept reality. If you can change something, act. If you cannot change it, stop wasting your mind fighting it. This does not mean becoming passive. It means becoming precise. Put effort where effort can matter. Release what no effort can change. Self-control also requires control over your desires. Every desire promises that satisfaction will create peace, but uncontrolled desire creates dependence. The more the mind believes it must have something to be content, the more fragile it becomes. Practice wanting without needing. Appreciate without clinging. Enjoy without becoming a servant to enjoyment. You strengthen yourself when you prove that you can choose. Choose to delay a pleasure. Choose to complete a responsibility before seeking comfort. Choose simplicity when excess is unnecessary. Choose patience when impatience feels easier. These choices teach your mind that it is guided by reason, not by every passing urge. Do not mistake self-control for restriction alone. It is the ability to act freely according to what is best. The person controlled by impulses is limited because he cannot choose differently. The person trained in discipline has more freedom because he is not forced by every desire and emotion that appears. Each evening, examine where you gave your power away. Did you allow someone's behavior to determine your mood? Did you spend hours thinking about something outside your control? Did you react in a way that you knew was beneath your principles? Did you avoid responsibility by blaming circumstances? Do not examine yourself with excuses. Excuses protect weakness. They prevent growth by making every failure someone else's responsibility. But do not examine yourself with hopelessness either. The purpose is not to condemn yourself. The purpose is to become more aware and more capable. A person becomes stronger when he stops asking the world to remove every challenge and starts asking himself how he can meet challenges with wisdom. Difficulty becomes training. Disagreement becomes practice for patience. Delay becomes practice for endurance. Loss becomes practice for accepting what cannot be controlled. The world does not need to become perfectly arranged before you can live well. Your mind needs to become properly ordered. A calm person is not someone who controls every circumstance. A calm person is someone who does not allow every circumstance to control him. Your life will always contain things you cannot command. People will change. Situations will shift. Plans will fail. Expectations will be broken. But your ability to choose your response remains with you. Stop trying to become powerful by controlling everything around you. Become powerful by mastering yourself. The person who governs his thoughts, his desires, his words and his reactions carries a strength that external conditions cannot easily remove. Begin today with one decision. Before I attempt to change anything outside me, I will examine what needs to be corrected within me. This is where true discipline begins, not with controlling the world, with becoming worthy of controlling yourself. Number 6. Train focus with inner silence. The modern mind is surrounded by endless movement, yet many people have never truly learned how to remain still. They are constantly receiving, reacting, consuming and responding, but rarely observing the condition of their own thoughts. Silence has become uncomfortable because silence removes the distractions that hide the disorder within. When everything becomes quiet, the mind reveals what has been ignored. A person who fears silence often fears meeting himself. Noise can cover impatience. Entertainment can cover dissatisfaction. Constant activity can cover confusion. But the disciplined person does not run from the inner world. He enters it with honesty because he understands that a mind left unexamined cannot become steady. Focus does not begin with forcing the world to become quiet. It begins with training yourself not to be controlled by every disturbance. There will always be sounds, demands, opinions, and unexpected events. The question is not whether distractions exist. The question is whether your mind has the strength to remain guided by reason when distractions appear. A scattered mind is not only caused by external interruptions. Often the greatest distraction is the constant conversation happening within you. You replay old moments. You imagine future problems. You argue with situations that are no longer present. You create judgments about people without understanding them. You allow thoughts to arrive and immediately treat them as commands. This is where inner silence becomes a Stoic practice. Inner silence does not mean having no thoughts. The human mind will continue producing impressions. Inner silence means creating enough distance from those impressions that you can examine them before accepting them. It is the ability to remain present with reason instead of being carried away by every mental movement. The undisciplined mind says, "I thought it, therefore it must be true." The disciplined mind asks, "Is this thought accurate? Does it help me act according to virtue? Does it belong to what I can control?" This examination separates a wise judgment from a passing reaction. Your attention is constantly being invited away from yourself. People want your opinion. Events demand your emotional response. Desires demand satisfaction. The world is full of things asking to become the center of your mind. If you do not consciously choose where your attention goes, something else will choose for you. Begin your morning by protecting the first moments of awareness. Before allowing the outside world to fill your mind, create a period of reflection. Sit with your thoughts without immediately following them. Observe what appears. Notice what concerns you. Notice what desires arise. Notice what fears attempt to take control. Then return to reason. This practice teaches you that you are not required to obey every thought. You can witness a thought without becoming attached to it. You can recognize a feeling without allowing it to dictate your behavior. You can acknowledge a problem without surrendering your peace to it. Many people believe focus means concentrating harder, but true focus requires removing unnecessary inner conflict. A mind constantly fighting reality cannot give full attention to the present. If you are still arguing with what already happened, you are unavailable for what is happening now. If you are obsessed with controlling tomorrow, you are absent from today. The Stoic approach begins with acceptance of reality as it is. Acceptance does not mean approval of every event. It means refusing to waste your judgment on denying what has already arrived. Once you stop fighting the existence of a moment, you become free to decide how to respond to it. A person who practices inner silence learns to separate observation from interpretation. Someone ignores you. That is an observation. They do not respect me is an interpretation. A plan fails. That is an observation. Everything is against me is an interpretation. The mind creates additional suffering when it adds conclusions without examining them. This is why daily self-examination is essential. Without it, you become a prisoner of your own assumptions. You begin reacting to your imagination instead of responding to reality. You defend yourself against threats that do not exist. You carry emotional weight created by judgments that were never tested. Create moments during the day where you return to yourself. Before beginning a task, ask what deserves your attention. During a difficult conversation, ask what response reflects your character. When frustration appears, ask whether the situation requires action or acceptance. These small moments of awareness strengthen the connection between reason and behavior. Inner silence also requires learning to value simplicity. A mind that constantly seeks stimulation becomes unable to appreciate stillness. It begins believing that every empty moment must be filled, but emptiness is not always a problem. Sometimes it is where clarity appears. Spend time without unnecessary input. Walk without filling every second with sound. Sit without reaching for distraction. Allow your mind to settle. At first you may notice restlessness. That restlessness is not proof that silence is harmful. It is evidence that the mind has become accustomed to constant activity. When you remain with yourself without escape, you begin to see patterns. You notice what repeatedly disturbs you. You notice which desires control you. You notice which opinions have too much power over you. This awareness is necessary because you cannot govern what you refuse to examine. The practice of inner silence is also the practice of reducing unnecessary judgment toward others. A noisy mind quickly creates stories about people. Someone acts differently and you assume bad intention. Someone disagrees and you assume hostility. Someone succeeds and you compare yourself. These judgments consume attention that could be used for improving yourself. A calm mind does not mean a passive mind. It means a mind that chooses carefully. It does not spend energy on every irritation. It does not chase every thought. It does not allow every external event to become an internal disturbance. Your attention is limited. Every moment spent trapped in resentment is a moment unavailable for virtue. Every moment spent imagining what others think is a moment unavailable for your own duties. Every moment spent escaping yourself is a moment lost from understanding yourself. Practice returning to the present. The present is where your choices exist. The past cannot receive your action. The future cannot receive your action. Only now can you practice patience, courage, honesty, and self-control. A powerful evening practice is to review the quality of your attention. Where did your mind spend the day? Did you choose your focus, or did you simply follow whatever appeared? Did you give importance to things that deserved none? Did you allow minor events to occupy a large part of your thoughts? Did you remain connected to reason when emotions became strong? This examination is not meant to create guilt. It is meant to create awareness. A person who understands his own mind becomes capable of directing it. A person who refuses to look inward remains controlled by patterns he does not understand. You do not need to remove every distraction from your life to become focused. You need to become the kind of person who can remain centered despite distraction. The goal is not to escape the world. The goal is to move through the world without losing command of yourself. Every time you pause before reacting, you strengthen awareness. Every time you question an automatic judgment, you strengthen wisdom. Every time you return your attention to the task before you, you strengthen discipline. The mind is trained through repetition. If you constantly interrupt yourself, you teach yourself impatience. If you constantly chase stimulation, you teach yourself dependence. If you constantly avoid silence, you teach yourself fear of your own thoughts. But if you practice stillness, examination, and deliberate attention, you teach yourself stability. The person with inner silence is not someone who has no challenges. He simply refuses to add unnecessary conflict to the challenges already present. He meets events with a clearer mind because he has stopped creating battles inside himself. Do not underestimate the power of a quiet moment. A quiet moment can reveal a false belief. A quiet moment can expose a harmful desire. A quiet moment can remind you of your principles. A quiet moment can return you to yourself. The world will continue to move quickly. People will continue to speak. Circumstances will continue to change. Your mind will continue to produce thoughts. Your responsibility is to remain the one who examines, chooses, and acts. Train your focus by training your inner silence. Protect your attention. Question your judgments. Accept what is outside your control. Return to reason whenever the mind begins to wander. A disciplined mind is not created by avoiding life. It is created by meeting life with a mind that is clear enough to see, strong enough to choose, and quiet enough to hear what reason has been saying all along. Number 7. Develop consistency through Stoic routines. A person does not become disciplined through occasional moments of effort. Character is not created by what you do once when you feel inspired. It is created by what you repeatedly choose when inspiration disappears. The quality of your life is shaped by the patterns you allow to continue. Every day you are practicing something. You are either practicing self-command or practicing surrender. You are either strengthening your principles or strengthening your excuses. Many people want change, but they want the result without the repetition required to create it. They admire the idea of discipline but resist the ordinary actions that build it. They want the confidence, the peace, and the strength of a disciplined person, but they avoid the daily responsibilities that produce those qualities. This is where self-deception begins. A person cannot repeatedly act against his values and still expect to become aligned with them. Consistency is the bridge between intention and character. Without consistency, your decisions remain temporary. You may know what is right, but knowledge alone does not transform you. The mind must be trained through repeated practice until the right action becomes the natural response. This is why daily routines matter. They create a structure where reason can guide behavior even when emotions fluctuate. Your problem is often not a lack of knowledge. You already know many things you should do. You know what habits weaken you. You know where you waste your time. You know which responsibilities you avoid. The challenge is not discovering the truth. The challenge is respecting it enough to live by it every day. The undisciplined person allows his actions to be determined by his current state. If he feels motivated, he acts. If he feels tired, he stops. If he feels confident, he begins. If he feels uncertain, he delays. His life becomes controlled by changing conditions inside him. But a person guided by reason does not allow every passing feeling to rewrite his commitments. This does not mean ignoring your human nature. It means refusing to become a servant to every temporary condition. Feelings change, circumstances change, energy changes, but principles remain. The purpose of a routine is to anchor your actions to something deeper than emotion. A Stoic routine begins with awareness. Before you create a schedule, understand what kind of person you are trying to become. A routine without virtue becomes empty repetition. The goal is not simply to wake early, complete tasks, and appear productive. The goal is to develop a character that acts with wisdom, restraint, courage, and fairness. Begin your day with intention. Do not allow the first moments of awareness to be consumed by random demands. Before the world begins speaking to you, speak clearly to yourself. Ask what responsibilities are yours today. Ask what qualities you must practice. Ask where you are most likely to abandon your principles. You are not preparing to control every event. You are preparing to control your conduct within every event. A person who begins the day without reflection often spends the day reacting. He moves from one demand to another without asking whether his actions are aligned with what matters. Then at night he feels exhausted without understanding why. The reason is simple. A mind without direction is easily pulled. A routine gives the mind a path. It removes unnecessary decisions and creates space for higher thinking. When you decide in advance what actions support your values, you reduce the influence of impulse. You stop asking every day whether you feel like doing what is necessary. You simply return to the commitment you made. Consistency requires accepting that progress is often quiet. The mind wants dramatic evidence that change is happening. It wants immediate results. But character develops slowly because character is built from repeated choices. The person who practices patience for months becomes patient. The person who practices restraint for months becomes restrained. The person who practices honesty with himself becomes clearer. Do not disrespect small actions. The small actions are where your philosophy becomes real. A belief that never reaches behavior is only an idea. A principle expressed through action becomes character. Create routines that bring you back to yourself. Spend time examining your thoughts. Review your choices. Learn from your mistakes. Identify where your judgments became distorted. Notice where you reacted instead of choosing. The purpose of reflection is to prevent unconscious living. A person who does not examine his days allows his days to shape him. Circumstances, habits, and other people's expectations slowly decide who he becomes, but the person who reflects takes responsibility for his development. He asks whether his actions are moving him toward virtue or away from it. Consistency also requires humility. You will fail. You will miss your standard. You will have days where discipline feels difficult. The mistake is not failure itself. The mistake is using failure as permission to abandon the path. The weak mind says, "I failed, so there is no point continuing." The disciplined mind says, "I failed, so I must understand what happened and correct it." One reaction creates defeat. The other creates improvement. Do not turn one mistake into an identity. A poor choice is an event, not a permanent definition of who you are. But also do not ignore repeated mistakes. Patterns reveal what you have been training. If the same weakness appears again and again, it requires attention, not excuses. The evening examination is one of the most powerful routines for self-improvement. Before resting, review the day honestly. Where did you act according to your values? Where did you allow impatience to lead? Where did you waste energy on things outside your control? Where did you choose comfort when responsibility was required? This reflection creates a relationship with yourself based on truth. You stop hiding from your weaknesses. You stop pretending your problems are always caused by external circumstances. You begin seeing the connection between your judgments and your experiences. Consistency also depends on understanding that your routine is not a prison. It is a tool for freedom. Without structure, the mind becomes easily controlled by distraction and impulse. A good routine does not remove choice. It protects your ability to choose wisely. The person who has no discipline often believes he is free because he does whatever he wants. But if every desire controls him, where is freedom? If every emotion decides his actions, where is freedom? True freedom is the ability to act according to reason, even when easier options are available. Your routines should strengthen this ability. They should remind you that you are responsible for your own character. They should make it easier to choose what is right because you have practiced choosing it repeatedly. Pay attention to the habits you repeat without thinking, the way you respond to criticism, the way you handle inconvenience, the way you speak when frustrated, the way you treat people when you gain nothing from being kind. These moments reveal the training of your character. Do not only build routines around achievement, build routines around becoming better. A person can accomplish many things while remaining controlled by anger, pride, fear, or selfishness. External success without inner discipline does not create a good life. The highest routine is the daily return to reason. Throughout the day, pause and ask, is this response worthy of the person I want to be? Is this desire leading me towards strength or dependence? Is this concern within my control, or am I wasting my mind on what cannot be changed? These questions keep you aligned. They bring you back when distraction pulls you away. The disciplined person is not someone who never struggles. He is someone who has created practices that help him return. He understands that consistency is not perfection, it is commitment repeated through imperfect circumstances. You do not need a completely different life before you begin living with discipline. You need different choices within the life you already have. The opportunity to practice wisdom exists in ordinary moments. The way you handle today is the training for tomorrow. Every morning is a chance to begin again. Every decision is a chance to strengthen your character. Every evening is a chance to learn from yourself. The path is not complicated, but it requires honesty. Stop waiting for the perfect conditions. Stop believing that discipline will arrive after life becomes easier. Life becomes easier to navigate when your mind becomes stronger. Build routines that serve your reason. Repeat actions that strengthen virtue. Examine yourself without excuses. Correct yourself without giving up. A person who lives consistently according to his principles develops something greater than a temporary achievement. He develops trust in himself. He knows that his choices are not controlled by moods, distractions, or circumstances. That is the foundation of a disciplined life. Not a single powerful moment, but a daily return to what is right. Your character is being formed today through what you repeatedly do. Choose your routines carefully. Choose your actions deliberately. Let each day become another step toward the person your reason tells you to become. Number 8. Choose virtue over temporary pleasure. The human mind is constantly pulled toward what feels good in the present moment. It seeks comfort, approval, pleasure, and relief. It wants the easier choice, the faster reward, the path with less resistance. But the person who allows every desire to lead him becomes controlled by things that cannot give him lasting peace. Temporary pleasure often appears harmless because the cost does not arrive immediately. The mind sees only the satisfaction of the moment and ignores the effect that repeated choices have on character. A single act of avoidance may feel small. A single indulgence may feel insignificant. A single surrender may seem meaningless. But a person's life is not shaped by one moment alone. It is shaped by the direction those moments create. The disciplined mind understands that every choice is a statement about what it values. When you choose what is easy over what is right, you strengthen the desire for ease. When you choose what is comfortable over what is necessary, you strengthen dependence on comfort. When you choose immediate satisfaction over self-control, you weaken your ability to govern yourself. The question is not whether pleasure exists. Pleasure is part of human experience. The question is whether pleasure serves reason or replaces it. A wise person does not hate enjoyment. He simply refuses to become a servant to it. He knows that anything outside his control cannot be the foundation of his life. Many people chase temporary satisfaction because they believe the next achievement, possession, experience, or approval will finally create inner stability. But the mind that depends on external things will always remain vulnerable because external things are always changing. What satisfies you today may disappoint you tomorrow. What you desire intensely today may lose its importance later. If your peace depends on these things, your peace is constantly at risk. Virtue is different because it comes from your own choices. Wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control are not gifts that others can give or remove. They are developed through practice. This is why the Stoic path places virtue above temporary pleasure. The good life is not measured by how many desires you satisfy. It is measured by the quality of the person you become while living. Examine your daily decisions honestly. How often do you choose comfort when discipline is required? How often do you escape something difficult instead of facing it? How often do you seek distraction instead of reflection? These moments reveal the relationship you have with yourself. The undisciplined person believes every desire deserves attention. He treats every urge as important. He follows every emotional movement as if it contains wisdom. But desire is not always a guide. Sometimes desire reveals weakness. Sometimes it reveals attachment. Sometimes it reveals a habit that has been controlling you for years. The practice of self-examination begins by creating distance between wanting and choosing. You can want something and still decide it is not good for you. You can feel resistance and still act correctly. You can experience discomfort and still remain committed to your principles. This is where true freedom begins. Freedom is not the ability to do whatever you want. If every desire commands you, you are not free. You are controlled by whatever appears in your mind. Freedom is the ability to choose according to reason, even when your impulses suggest another direction. Begin each morning by deciding what kind of person you will be. Do not make your first goal comfort. Make your first goal alignment with virtue. Ask yourself what challenges may appear today. Where might you be tempted to act from impatience? Where might you seek approval instead of acting with integrity? Where might you choose the easier path instead of the meaningful one? A prepared mind is less likely to be controlled by temptation because it has already considered the struggle before it arrives. Temporary pleasure often hides behind convincing arguments. It says, "You deserve this." It says, "This one time does not matter." It says, "You can correct it later." But the disciplined person understands that repeated surrender creates a pattern. The issue is not only the action itself. The issue is what that action teaches the mind. If you repeatedly choose avoidance, you train yourself to avoid. If you repeatedly choose restraint, you train yourself to endure. If you repeatedly choose honesty, you train yourself to face reality. Every action is a form of training. Do not underestimate the power of small choices. Character is not built only through major challenges. It is built through ordinary decisions that no one else sees. The moment you choose patience instead of anger, discipline instead of laziness, responsibility instead of excuse, you strengthen the person you are becoming. The Stoic practice is not to remove all desire. It is to examine desire. Ask yourself, does this move me toward a better character? Does this strengthen my ability to govern myself? Does this serve what is truly valuable, or does it only satisfy a passing feeling? This question changes how you approach life. You stop asking only, what do I want, and begin asking, what is worthy of my choice? The first question is directed by impulse. The second is guided by reason. There will always be moments when pleasure competes with responsibility. The difficult task competes with entertainment. The honest conversation competes with avoidance. The necessary action competes with comfort. These moments are not interruptions to your growth. They are where your growth happens. A person who never experiences resistance never discovers his own strength. Strength appears when you choose according to principle, despite the pull of another option. Practice voluntary simplicity, not because having comfort is wrong, but because dependence on comfort creates weakness. Allow yourself to experience situations where you do not immediately satisfy every preference. Learn that you can remain steady without constant reward. Teach your mind that peace does not require everything to be convenient. This practice removes fear. If you know you can live without certain comforts, you become less controlled by the possibility of losing them. If you know you can face difficulty, difficulty loses some of its power over you. The evening reflection is where you strengthen this awareness. Review the moments where you chose pleasure over principle. Do not hide them. Do not create excuses. Ask what judgment led you there. Ask what belief allowed the choice. Ask what you can practice tomorrow. Self-improvement requires honesty because the mind cannot correct what it refuses to acknowledge. The person who always protects his excuses protects his weaknesses. The person who examines himself creates the possibility of change. Remember that virtue is not a feeling, it is a practice. You will not always feel like doing what is right. You will not always feel motivated. You will not always feel strong. But the person who waits for perfect feelings gives control of his life to temporary conditions. Act according to reason first. Feelings will follow their own course. A person who chooses virtue over temporary pleasure gains something greater than momentary satisfaction. He gains trust in himself. He knows that his decisions are not controlled by every passing desire. He knows that he can face discomfort without collapsing. He knows that he can remain committed to what matters. The world will continue offering endless distractions. There will always be easier options. There will always be opportunities to trade discipline for comfort. Your responsibility is not to eliminate temptation from existence. Your responsibility is to become the kind of person who can meet temptation without surrendering. Do not ask only whether something feels good now. Ask what kind of person this choice is creating. Ask whether this action strengthens your character or weakens it. Ask whether you are moving toward wisdom or becoming more dependent on temporary satisfaction. Your future self is being shaped by the decisions your present self repeats. Every choice is training. Every response is practice. Every moment is an opportunity to become more governed by reason. Choose what strengthens you. Choose what aligns with virtue. Choose what remains valuable even when circumstances change. Temporary pleasure fades, character remains. The person who understands this stops chasing every passing desire and begins building a life directed by wisdom, discipline, and inner strength. Number 9. Sharpen attention through mindful reflection. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of attention you bring to each moment. A person can move through many years while barely being present in his own existence. He completes tasks, speaks words, makes decisions, and experiences events, but his mind is rarely fully there. He is constantly pulled away by memories, expectations, fears, and judgments. He is physically present but mentally divided. A scattered mind cannot see clearly because it is always moving before it has understood. It reacts before examining. It judges before observing. It assumes before knowing. This is how many people create unnecessary suffering. They do not suffer only from what happens. They suffer from the conclusions they attach to what happens. Mindful reflection is the practice of returning to awareness. It is not passive thinking. It is not escaping from action. It is the deliberate examination of your own judgments, motives, and choices so that you can live according to reason instead of habit. Every day your mind receives countless impressions. Someone says something. Something changes, an event occurs, a memory appears, a desire rises. The mind immediately begins creating meaning, but not every impression deserves agreement. The disciplined person understands that the first interpretation is not always the truth. A person who never examines his judgments becomes controlled by them. If he believes every thought, he becomes a prisoner of his own mind. If he treats every emotion as evidence, he becomes governed by temporary conditions. If he accepts every assumption as reality, he loses the ability to choose wisely. The practice begins with a simple act. Observe before accepting. When anger appears, do not immediately become anger. When fear appears, do not immediately become fear. When desire appears, do not immediately become desire. Notice what is happening within you and ask whether this movement deserves your agreement. This creates a space where reason can enter. The undisciplined mind is always rushing toward conclusions. Someone does not respond quickly, and the mind creates a story. A plan changes, and the mind creates a complaint. A difficulty appears, and the mind creates a prediction of failure. These reactions feel natural, but they are often untested judgments. The wise person examines the judgment itself. He asks, what exactly do I know? What am I assuming? Is this within my control? What response would reflect my values? This process prevents the mind from being ruled by appearances. Your morning should begin with this kind of preparation. Before the demands of the day take your attention, spend time examining your direction. Consider what kind of situations may test your patience. Consider what emotions may attempt to guide you. Consider what responsibilities require your attention. The purpose is not to predict every event. The purpose is to strengthen your relationship with your own mind. A person who begins the day without awareness often becomes a reaction to whatever happens. His mood depends on messages, circumstances, and other people's behavior. His inner condition changes constantly because he has no stable foundation, but the person who practices reflection carries something different. He remembers that his first responsibility is his own judgment. Events arrive from outside. Meaning is created within. This is where his discipline begins. Mindful reflection also teaches you to examine your desires. Many desires appear as if they are necessary. The mind says, I must have this. This must happen. This person must behave differently. But reflection asks whether the desire is connected to wisdom or attachment. A desire that depends on controlling what is outside you creates weakness. A desire directed toward your own character creates strength. Wanting to act honestly is within your power. Wanting everyone to recognize your honesty is not. Wanting to make a sincere effort is within your power. Wanting guaranteed success is not. When you understand this distinction, your attention becomes more focused because you stop spending energy on impossible demands. Reflection also requires looking honestly at your reactions. The moment after something happens reveals your training. When challenged, do you immediately defend yourself? When criticized, do you immediately become upset? When disappointed, do you immediately blame? These moments are not reasons for shame. They are opportunities for examination. Your reactions show you where your mind still lacks discipline. A person cannot improve what he refuses to see. The person who constantly justifies himself remains trapped in the same patterns, but the person who observes himself clearly creates the possibility of change. Create moments throughout the day where you return to awareness. Before making an important decision, examine your motive. Before speaking, consider whether your words are useful. Before acting from emotion, question whether the action reflects your principles. These small pauses transform ordinary moments into training. The purpose of reflection is not to make you endlessly analyze yourself. Too much thinking without action becomes another form of avoidance. The goal is clarity that leads to right action. Once you understand what is true, act according to it. A disciplined mind does not spend all day judging itself. It simply remains awake. It notices when it moves away from reason and returns. This return is the practice. You will lose focus. You will become distracted. You will experience emotions that challenge your discipline. The question is not whether this happens. The question is whether you recognize it and correct your direction. The person who practices mindful reflection becomes less controlled by external events because he understands his own participation in his experience. He sees that suffering often increases when the mind adds unnecessary judgments to reality. A difficult conversation is difficult enough without adding hatred. A mistake is difficult enough without adding self-condemnation. A loss is difficult enough without adding resistance to the fact that it happened. Reflection removes what is unnecessary so that you can deal with what is real. The evening is a powerful time for this practice. Review your day with honesty, not with excuses, not with harshness, with clarity. Ask yourself, where did I act according to reason? Where did I allow emotion to lead? Where did I waste attention on things that did not deserve it? Where did I avoid a responsibility? Where did I choose the easier response instead of the better one? This daily examination keeps the mind awake. Without it, days pass and patterns continue. With it, every experience becomes a teacher. Your mistakes become information. Your struggles become opportunities for practice. Your challenges become places where your principles can become stronger. The person who reflects understands that improvement is not created by wishing to be different. It is created by seeing clearly and acting differently. Attention is a form of respect. What you give your attention to receives your life. If you give your attention to resentment, resentment grows. If you give your attention to fear, fear expands. If you give your attention to virtue, virtue becomes stronger. Therefore, guard your attention carefully. Do not allow every opinion, every event, and every thought to claim ownership of your mind. A focused person chooses where his mind rests. This does not mean ignoring reality. It means meeting reality with a trained mind. You observe what happens. You understand what belongs to you, and you act according to reason. The world will continue to present uncertainty. People will continue to behave according to their own judgments. Circumstances will continue changing. But your ability to examine your response remains. That ability is developed through reflection. The person who practices mindful reflection no longer lives entirely from habit. He begins to live deliberately. He becomes aware of the connection between thought and action, between judgment and emotion, between choice and character. This awareness is the beginning of self-governance. Do not underestimate the power of examining one thought before accepting it. One examined thought can prevent one harmful action. One pause can prevent one unnecessary conflict. One moment of awareness can change the direction of an entire day. Your mind is the place where every choice begins. Train it carefully. Return to yourself. Examine what appears. Separate truth from assumption. Choose your response with reason. A disciplined life is built by a disciplined mind, and a disciplined mind is built through the daily practice of honest reflection. Number 10. Transform character through Stoic discipline. A person does not transform his character by wishing for change. Character is not shaped by intention alone, nor by admiration for discipline, nor by understanding what is right in theory. Character is shaped in the exact moment a choice is made between impulse and reason. Every day, in countless small decisions, you are either reinforcing weakness or strengthening discipline. There is no neutral ground. You are always becoming something through what you repeatedly allow yourself to do. Most people misunderstand their own suffering. They believe it comes from external events, from other people's actions, or from circumstances beyond their control. But the deeper source of suffering is often the undisciplined movement of the mind. Automatic judgments arise without examination. Emotional reactions are accepted without question. Complaints become habitual responses to discomfort. Expectations are placed on things that were never within your control, and because these inner patterns are not questioned, they begin to govern your life quietly and completely. Transformation begins when you stop treating your thoughts as commands. A thought is not an instruction. A feeling is not an order. An impulse is not a truth. These are events within the mind, not authorities over the mind. The disciplined person learns to observe them first, before deciding whether they deserve action. This simple shift separates a reactive life from a deliberate one. You must examine how often you act without awareness. How often do you respond to situations before understanding them? How often do you speak before reflecting? How often do you judge others without seeing the full picture? These habits create a life where your reactions move faster than your reason. When this happens repeatedly, your character is no longer guided by principles but by patterns. Stoic discipline is not an identity. It is a practice of continuous correction. It is the willingness to notice when your judgment is distorted and return to clarity. It is the decision to slow down the chain between impression and action so that reason can regain authority. Without this practice, the mind becomes a machine, reacting to whatever appears in front of it. Begin with your morning. Before engaging with the world, observe the condition of your mind. Do not immediately attach yourself to tasks, opinions, or distractions. First, recognize what kind of thoughts are present. Notice tension, expectation, or restlessness without following them. Then remind yourself that the day will contain things outside your control, but your response to them remains yours alone. This early awareness sets the tone for discipline. A mind that is not examined at the beginning of the day is more likely to be governed by impulse throughout it. But a mind that has been observed becomes more capable of noticing itself later when it begins to drift. Throughout the day, practice the separation between what belongs to you and what does not. Your judgments belong to you. Your actions belong to you. Your attention belongs to you. The behavior of others does not belong to you. The outcomes of events do not belong to you. The passage of time does not belong to you. When you confuse these boundaries, you lose clarity and create unnecessary frustration. Much of emotional disturbance comes from attempting to control what is not within your power. You want people to behave differently. You want circumstances to remain stable. You want outcomes to match your expectations. But reality does not exist to confirm your preferences. When you attach your inner state to things outside your control, you place your peace in unstable hands. A disciplined character begins with accepting reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. Acceptance does not mean passivity. It means seeing clearly before acting. When you stop resisting what has already happened, you free your attention to focus on what can still be shaped. This clarity is where strength begins. Examine your reactions carefully. When you feel anger, do not immediately express it. When you feel fear, do not immediately obey it. When you feel desire, do not immediately follow it. Instead, pause and ask what judgment created this reaction. Often you will find that the emotion is based on an interpretation, not a fact. Once you see this, you regain the ability to choose. Character transformation occurs in this moment of interruption. The space between impulse and action is where discipline is born. If you do not create this space, your life will always be governed by immediate reactions. If you do create it, you begin to govern yourself. You must also examine your complaints. Every complaint reveals an expectation about reality that was not met. When you complain, ask whether the expectation was reasonable and whether it was within your control. If it was not, then the complaint is not insight but resistance. Resistance to what is already true drains your strength without improving your situation. A disciplined person does not waste energy arguing with what cannot be changed. Instead, he redirects his attention to what remains within his influence. This shift alone reduces unnecessary suffering. It replaces frustration with clarity and reaction with responsibility. Transformation also requires confronting avoidance. Many people avoid difficult tasks, difficult conversations, or uncomfortable truths about themselves. They delay action not because they lack ability, but because they prefer temporary ease. But avoidance strengthens weakness. Each time you avoid what you know you must face, you reinforce hesitation within yourself. The disciplined life requires acting in alignment with reason, even when emotion resists. You may not feel ready, you may not feel confident, you may not feel comfortable, but readiness is not a prerequisite for action. It is a result of action repeated over time. Each time you choose responsibility over avoidance, you strengthen your character. Each time you choose honesty over excuse, you weaken self-deception. Each time you choose clarity over confusion, you move closer to inner stability. At the end of each day, examine how your character behaved under pressure. Where did you remain aligned with reason? Where did you abandon it? Where did you act from principle? And where did you act from impulse? This examination is not about punishment. It is about awareness. Without awareness, change is impossible. Do not allow your mistakes to become identities. They are indicators, not definitions. They show where discipline is still weak. If you treat them honestly, they become instructions for improvement. If you ignore them, they become patterns that repeat. A transformed character is not one that never fails. It is one that learns from failure instead of repeating it blindly. It is one that recognizes deviation from reason and returns without delay. The return is the practice. Over time, disciplined action begins to reshape your inner responses. What once required effort becomes natural. What once required struggle becomes stable. You begin to notice that you are less controlled by immediate reactions and more guided by considered judgment. This is how character is formed, not through sudden change, but through repeated alignment with reason. Do not expect external conditions to provide stability for your inner life. Stability must be built within. Circumstances will continue to shift. People will continue to act unpredictably. Events will continue to unfold in ways you did not choose. But your ability to respond with clarity remains constant if you train it. Transformation is not found in controlling life. It is found in controlling your response to life. When you understand this, you stop wasting energy on what cannot be shaped and begin investing energy into what can. Your character is always being formed. Every moment is contributing to it. The question is not whether you are changing. The question is whether you are changing consciously or unconsciously. Choose discipline over impulse. Choose reflection over reaction. Choose responsibility over avoidance. Choose clarity over assumption. Choose reason over habit. This is how character is transformed, not through intention alone, but through repeated alignment with what is right, especially when it is difficult.